So welcome back to the Wedding Capture Co podcast, a podcast for wedding photographers and videographers with myself, Tom, and my good buddy, Chris.
Hello.
And today I came with a burning question. Is now the best time to be a wedding videographer? Now, I'm not sure why I thought of this because I'm not actually a videographer, but obviously there are loads of things at the moment with Coda on the horizon and the rise of content creators and loads of other stuff kind of going on that I think anyway, that now could be the very best time in this industry to be a wedding videographer.
Well, Tom, we finally missed an episode.
We did it. I feel like we spent the last few episodes really wearing that badge of we've done it this year, we've done it, and then we failed.
Yeah, we did some humble bragging, didn't we? We did. And then we missed one.
It was completely dumbfounded.
But ironically, it wasn't during our really busy season where we had lots of guests and lots of weddings going on. I suppose it was, to be fair, you were quite busy towards the end of August, beginning of September and that kind of thing, weren't you?
I think it's just that thing, the momentum's built, hasn't it? And so I think it finally reached that fever point where we were both kind of we can't fit it in. Things in our own businesses are going to probably pretty much suffer if we do carve even out a day just to kind of record.
Yeah, it's you could record, but it would put you even further back than you are now. And when you have a lot together, which you did, and I had probably 4 at the beginning of September, I think. So it was just that kind of really busy time. When you have a lot together, you've got to deliver the previews. I've got to make sure that the queue isn't just getting longer and no one's getting knocked off the top. So it's Well,
I think as well, I think we're also really, really honest, is that we're grateful to everyone that listens to this podcast, and as much as we want to kind of hear and provide kind of jolly industry banter and stuff, we also like to kind of present ourselves, because for the most part we are remarkably smiley, happy, upbeat people who do genuinely like our jobs. I think that if we just sat down and recorded on that day where we both come off the back of double headers or massive editing piles, you probably would have maybe got the more negative side of us, which is not something that anybody wants to listen to. It's bad enough that our wives have to listen to us moan on. The bad that to have that as a recorded conversation where we do that. So I feel that to have even just a week, so we're only here a week after we should have dropped an episode, it's not too bad, and that I feel that I'm in a much more happy place to be talking about these things.
But we were kind of do we really want to be recording when we're this tired? Because it's just we don't want to be, we're quite honest, aren't we, in the way that we feel and that kind of thing, but we don't really want to release an episode just tired, it's been a crazy season, all that kind of stuff.
Because imagine that was the first episode that you listened to. Who are these guys? Do they actually even like their jobs? And for the most part, like I say, we do. And I also find that really ironic in the topic that I kind of came up with today. So I've kind of said, is now the best time to be a videographer? And I'm not even a videographer, is what I kind of think is there. But I kind of had this thought. I was kind of in the shower or doing something and was kind of thinking about mulling some things over and was like, do you know what? I feel like we are in a really, really exciting time for video now. Obviously, Coda is coming up in a couple of weeks, isn't it? And you're going. I think you could probably sell your ticket and make money for how many people want to go and can't get a ticket.
You have to pry off my cold dead body at this point.
And that is, for those of you that have been living under a rock for the past, kind of year, is going to be a purely videography conference held in Birmingham and by Rue Films, who we had on in a previous episode. If you want to listen to that episode, it was a good one. And I think that's just kind of one of the points that we're going to come up. But I think that's going to be a really landmark event. And as someone who's not a videographer, is kind of jealous that I'm not going to be there.
Yeah, I think it's the first of its kind, isn't it, for videographers? And it's something that I've been really looking forward to since they said it's something that's been missing in the industry. Because obviously I've spoken to you about photography farm, is it?
So Thrive is next week. I'm going to Thrive next week.
And go into that because there's nothing for video. So I've been can I just come along to that? And we'll just go and I'll just sit and listen.
People do. There have been videographers that have come because there hasn't been anything else. But even now, to think that that conference is probably going to be a few hundred strong, and to be stood in a room of some of a high percentage of a lot of the videographers that are in the country, or maybe even from Europe as well. I mean, that's pretty mind blowing. Or also, you'd like to think that all the people that have bothered to buy a ticket are people that want to socialise, want to learn and want to level up. So that everyone there is going to want to kind of talk and meet and stuff. And I think for you, kind of that element is going to be just as cool as the actual educational bit to take away from the talks.
Oh, 100%. And we're not paid to advertise Coda or whatever.
No, we're not, no.
But it genuinely is. It feels like Coda is like that peak point of okay, now we are a community, and we're videography is a thing, and it's here to stay. I'm really looking forward to, I think, probably the social element more. I've no doubt that I'll sit and I'll learn things, and it'll be nice to hear from people who are doing the talks and all that kind of stuff. But it's just been nice to get messages like, oh, you're going to Coda too, from people who I've just like followed Instagram for a while, or chatted to, a little back and forth on Instagram, or people that I've met but only very briefly. And I know that all of these people and faces are going to be there who I've followed and like been, Instagram friends with for a while, finally get to meet up and just like talk the world to right sort of thing.
And I think you really do know, and I kind of think that we're in a lucky position that we have this podcast, and obviously the conversations that you guys messaging us, the fact that we sit down and do this means that we probably have some of those probably more heartfelt and honest conversations, or kind of rationalise the things that we do in our businesses, or kind of vent about the industry as a whole, kind of which I found is a really, really healthy thing that for me anyway, and for my business. But to be able to say have that with people that you kind of say you've only ever seen their work on Instagram, on their websites. Again, you've only kind of seen their highlight reel, that to be able to, because you don't work with other videographers per se at weddings, you work with other photographers, but not other videographers. So to be able to sit down and say, have those conversations, and found out that maybe that thing that you saw of theirs that was really amazing, that there maybe is a story behind that, and it wasn't so, you kind of feel more humbling as well as inspired.
Yeah, definitely. It's weird to think that I probably know personally more photographers than I do videographers, because like you say, you just...
And you probably know more photographers than me in some fact, because you work with different ones.
Yeah, true.
Fairly often, Like in a year, you probably work with or see more different photographers than I do. Yeah,
I'm looking forward to putting faces to the names, and chatting to people, and obviously learning some stuff from the speakers as well. So it's really exciting. I'm obviously, so a couple of us are like getting a hotel and spending like a couple of days there, trying to make the most of it, because I was hoping there'd be an after party, and I think Rue has just said that there will be an after party.
I think it's got to be. If not, we've definitely found with Thrive that over the years that have gone by is that everyone's kind of, if there hasn't been anything organised, people have just kind of clubbed together and gone out to restaurants in groups anyway, and so people have just kind of gone, oh, can I come with you, or that, and it's kind of grown into that anyway, which is really nice, I think, for the guys that put the effort to put this on, to see that kind of, they've offered this platform and it has helped form a community. I think that must be a really rewarding thing.
100%. And I'd like to see it every year, to be fair, after this, but I'm sure it will be, because I think there is, like, they're going to plan.
There's got to be, surely, if you can sell out on the pre-sale, there's a demand for it. I think it probably, if he put the tickets out again, it would sell out probably again for next year, even probably based on the fact of there not being much of a lineup.
Yeah.
But then the lineup this year is so good that then you're already looking at going, well, who else are you going to get in?
Well, Rue, once you got through all the good videographers, I'll be there if you need me.
I think you'd have loads to offer from doing this and the stuff that I've learned from you alone. I'd come and listen to you speak. I'm not just saying that because you're my mate either. I would genuinely. I think,
oh, thank you.
I think that you'd be a good. Also, as well,
I think I would be good.
I just want to see your films on that massive screen as well. Like when we had the episode with Rue, and he was like, "Well, yeah, we're in a cinema."
Yeah.
Like the idea that you could sit and see like the films that you've made on like a ginormous screen.
I'm not speaking this year, that gave me anxiety. Like the fact that you would put your films like that you see on your tiny little editing screen on a massive cinema screen. That's like, whew.
I don't know. I think that
it would be very cool.
Yeah, that sense of pride would be pretty next level. To see something that you've made.
Seeing that Como film I just edited on the big screen would be another level.
You've arrived, yeah, for sure. Yeah, you've got your couple along and get have a screening.
No, but we appreciate you organising it, because it's going to be good. And it sort of spurred the topic of this conversation, which is about whether it is a good time to become a videographer. And I wanted to start with how it all started for me. I'm not going to go from a life story, but like in terms of like the industry. And when I first started, there was definitely a market for video, in that obviously I got booked up pretty quickly. Like I went from doing 7 weddings in my first year to like 30 odd in my second year, then 50 in my third year. So there was obviously a market for it, but it definitely wasn't as popular in that I would turn up to weddings and photographers would have never worked with a videographer before, or perhaps they, 15 years ago they'd worked with a videographer with a massive
the guy with the camcorder on the tripod, that's what you kind of think of as like that's kind of like the archetypal like classic videographer that people see, that like old school photographer thing that only does like the shots at the church and stuff, and that's kind of how I imagine it. And I worked with a couple of those very early days where I worked with a guy who'd obviously shot the couple's parents' wedding video, and they'd got him back, and he was still the guy with the camcorder, and he was pretty sleazy and pretty odd, but again, and he made this like literally just wandered around like a guest with the camcorder and presented them with like a 3.5 hour video at the end. Like there was no sense of grading or editing or anything. It was still shot on
tape, and it's just, it is what it is. And I feel like from talking to photographers in that era that there was a time where those videographers died off and nothing, that it wasn't replaced by anything. So there was some point in the early 2000s where there was no videographers, and not the old school ones, and the new ones hadn't quite come in yet. And so there was, when I was doing the first sort of batch of weddings, I was met with not always hostility, but a little bit of like, not really sure, from photographers who were like, I don't really know how to work with this new generation of, and some of it was definitely hostility of like, you know, you stay behind me and do what I want you to do.
But sadly, I still think over the episodes that we've had where we did the photo versus video stuff, and I'd like to think that maybe that is changing, particularly this year and last. It's so rare. That there is, that say up until the last couple of years, where the amount of, I think if you're a photographer working and doing any sort of numbers now, that there is probably, you are going to encounter videographers at your wedding, there's no doubt about it. And so you have to learn to play nice or work together, because they're not going away. Or like you said later, is that people are, you're not the add-on anymore, that they're wanting you as much as they want it, or if not more sometimes than they want in those photos. Yeah.
I mean, it's in the nicest possible way, but I think most progressive modern photographers are working with videographers for probably at least half of their weddings.
I would say that mine's probably at least half this year. Yeah. Even last year might have even been more.
Whereas it would never have been like that when I first started. It was literally like, oh, you're the first one I've worked with this year, and kind of stuff like that. So it definitely wasn't as popular. And I think I don't know whether it was because I was like obviously much cheaper back then, but it kind of felt like couples didn't care as much about it either, because it was like a new thing just coming in, I guess. It was like they didn't really want anything. They booked you. The pre-wedding call seemed like a bit of a slog for them. It was like, they didn't really know why they were there to have the pre-wedding call.
Don't you think as well, though, I mean, I've only just thought about this, is that because of the things that you've said, because there was that gap before, now when couples book videographers, they've seen your work on Instagram, or they've seen a benchmark of wedding video and go, I want that for my day. Whether they've seen something way elevated over the day they're having, but they've still seen what a video could be and go, I want that. But maybe when you were starting out, because Instagram was a lot less, social media was probably a lot less, it was only coming into its own, people were consuming less video, so they only had this idea of what they thought a wedding video could be, rather than have seen something and go, I want that for my day. Maybe that was, they were giving you less direction, or weren't giving you as much input as to what they wanted or excited about it, because they had no previous reference of it.
Because there wasn't as many comparison points. And also I don't really have a style either. I was just filming weddings at that point, right? Because you're at your early days. But now, like you say, I think people have a lot more to compare it to. So if you do have a little thing that stands out, and obviously we're all filming relatively similar things, right? But we're all showing different things and focusing on different things. And like part of this is obviously like branding, because I mean, one of the questions in the industry awards was, why do you think people choose you over your competition? And I literally asked the couples that, like, you've obviously seen a lot of wedding videos, why mine? And they're like, because I don't like slow cinematic drawn out films, I like a bit more like happy and whatever. And so you stand out a bit. But I feel like now, you've gone from being the extra thing that people have on the day to like, the initial inquiry is like, video is really important to us. Sometimes I've even had it a couple more times where it's more important than the photography. Or even more recently, like been asked what date I'm free so they can book their venue.
Which is amazing, isn't it?
And like that would not have happened, maybe for photographers, of course that would have happened a while ago, because it's like the first thing you book after the venue. But for video, I think that's quite a new thing.
And I feel that hierarchy is changing as well, where, like you said before, or even probably like pre-COVID, that you to go into a year with and you would pick up a lot more short notice bookings, because people would find budget as they were going into the closing months of their wedding and go, oh, actually got some money, we'll have a video. Or, oh, my friends had a video and now I kind of want one. When now, like you say, you are kind of up at that, you are at that very kind of beginning of people's journeys, that they're booking you and they're locking you in at the same time that they're locking in a venue and a photographer and stuff like that. So I think is that relationship with referrals is not so much that, again, the photographer holds less power, don't they? And kind of, oh, I know a videographer.
Well, still, like I get a lot of my referrals from photographers, and that doesn't escape me, and I really, really appreciate that, because generally there's still an order of what you book, but
things are changing.
I've been able to this year a few times recommend photographers because they've booked me first, which is like is a nice thing to then be able to send back, sort of thing.
And I think also what I've found as well is that now couples, and I guess this harps back to what we were saying a minute ago, are just more aware in that, again, I speak to all my couples pretty heavily about style and kind of, why do you want to book me? Do you like this? To make sure in that initial call they do really like my style of photography. But I think they're even saying now, oh, but thinking about having a video as well, do you know any videographers? And they're not asking it because they don't know any. They're asking, do I know anyone who's in my style? Because they've maybe only seen their friend who had violins and slow motion. And they're going, well, clearly we don't want that, which is why we've booked you.
Yeah.
As they are now beginning to realise that there are multiple styles of video out there.
Yeah.
Like the genre isn't wedding videography. There is cinematic, there is high energy. It's kind of that. I feel that there's much more scope now. And I guess technology's allowed that to happen as well in before, when your limit, if you were just the guy walking around with your camcorder, the limits of colour grading that, or out there chopping up bits of tape and stuff, that you couldn't really make those kind of transitions. But
there's a lot more variety now in terms of lengths of films, the pacing, the way you get a trailer, you get a social edit, all of that kind of stuff is now taken into account as well. So.
And I think as well, like I've put in my notes that I think we're kind of on that now. I argued that now is maybe the best time to be a videographer, because I think that we're on the eve of change coming again. In that, I know that obviously we've spoken about in a couple of episodes ago about kind of that we think that content creators are going to be one of the biggest kind of additions to weddings that we're going to see over the course of the next couple of years. And I think that, you know, that they are obviously taking phone footage of both photo and video, so it is going to have an impact on both of us. Again, it's someone else who needs to kind of stand in that line during a confetti throw or whatever, and I think it is going to have an impact on us. But
we've always been quite positive about content creators.
Yeah, and this is still the same. I think I've written in my notes that I think that it's going to give you guys a chance to stand out even more, though that they deliver more immediately. For someone to look at a portrait, again, if it's still just a portrait version of a confetti on their phone, it's still a very it's like an auntie standing next to me during the group photos and snapping photos on her phone, and then when they receive mine, they go, oh wow, that's so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that makes anything wrong with the footage. It's immediate. It serves a purpose in that gap, but I'd like to think that gives you even more of a scope to make a more polished, elevated thing, and the legacy of your wedding film will outlast anything the content creator makes.
I don't know whether I agree or disagree with that, because part of me agrees with that, because obviously, like, you know, the content creator puts out stuff and we can tell it's filmed on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't think that is always the case with a lot of people. I think that people might look at it and be like, oh, look what the videographer's produced. And obviously there's that, the thing I've sort of thought about is that there's that thing of the content creator puts the stuff out the day after the wedding.
Yeah.
So that going to then force videographers to start doing really, really early edits and trying to compete with that. And it ends up being just a race to the bottom in terms of how quickly can you deliver the most content possible. Yeah. And does it actually then make the final film worse because you've had to deliver it in a shorter time to compete with that?
I think it only becomes that if you let it. Yeah. I don't want this to become a whole content creation episode. No. But I think my argument is, I could always say then, well, what's the reason that I do previews? And is it to stop the couple using their friend's iPhone photo or the content creator's photo as their first kind of thank you on social media for it? And it probably is. But then I also know that I can turn around a photo of the same quality. I could turn around a dozen or 15 photos that night, and it doesn't hamper the quality of the overall gallery or the overall thing. But then for you to kind of get back and even be able to rush a reel out overnight, it's not going to be the same value, is it, to that? And again, I guess content creation needs to go through the same process that videography has at the moment. There are probably nobody's got longevity as being a content creator because it's such a new thing. Yeah. And over maybe the course of the next 3 to 5 years, if there's something that stick around in our industry, is content creators will get better, and maybe then they'll start having their own apps that will emerge for them to make kind of transitions and kind of more reels, or start to add some better grading to their offerings, and so that comparison will be there either, or that gap will close. But I still think you're still going to get some people that will book a content creator because they think it is a cheap way of getting video. Yeah,
so I've put that I do think it will shake the industry. Like, I don't think it makes it
of the market, I think.
So there's a few sort of markets or like niches in the market that will probably, I think, go more towards content creation and less towards videography.
Yeah.
I think if you're, mid to high end, then you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're shooting weddings that are grand, they're probably going to go for a content creator instead
highly possibly, potentially. Because again, there may be arguably the same couples that you were speaking to at the beginning of your journey that were just, we thought we want a video. Yeah. That's the easiest entry point to have video content on our day captured. We'll do it.
And now the easiest entry point is to get someone with a brand new iPhone to film some pretty decent content and then put it out the next day, give you all the photos and videos.
Particularly if you don't have a huge budget and your want for that is literally just to post a cool reel or some cool stuff on your socials.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Where if you're not sat there as a couple that say that we really want to have film content so that we can harness that audio and watch those speeches, or, you know, kind of see our day play out in a really cinematic way, like, you would have to get someone who's a hell of a content creator to make something with that level of narrative. And I don't think they're working in that way.
No, definitely.
They're working in a much more kind of highlights and hero shots way, aren't they?
It's definitely, I definitely don't get a storytelling vibe from any content creator.
But that's not their end mean, is it?
It's
just to literally pluck loads of 5, 10, 15 second clips out of the day and give them to those couples. So they've got a bank of content to stop the bride having to use her phone herself or make her guests do it.
But what you don't see, at least I think you don't, because I'm part of all of the videography groups, like a few in America, a couple in the UK, and like you didn't see the massive panic that's been going on this year amongst videographers. Like every other post is about a content creator now. Like, oh my God, a content creator happened at this wedding. Oh my God, content creator is going to kill our industry, all of this lot. It happens so, like there was a point in like, I don't know, whether May, June, July or something, where every post on this one group was about content creators, and it was like people panicking.
But don't you wonder that, maybe I wasn't around or I haven't seen it as much, but there were definitely people with photographers that like, these videographers are getting in and kind of, robots taking over.
Yeah.
Like, why would anyone want still photos? And I think as long as you offer a quality product or you rise above what you are, that's it. If you try and offer, again, if you're that, well, that's it, and I'm going to compete, and I'm going to stick my reel out, I'm going to say try and go into that, I'll show that content creator, I'm going to make a reel of that when it drops the next morning, so that when their phone videos come in, mine looks so much better.
But even that, it's just quality. I've spoken about this on the pod before because I've only worked with one content creator. Absolutely lovely. Again, I'm all for it.
And we are working on getting someone on. I think that's one of our next big wants. We want the content creator on.
If you're listening to this and you're a content creator, hit us up.
Or you know one that would love to come and speak to us. I think that's something which we would really love to do. Yeah.
But yes, I've worked with one. And then like the day after, they had a 3-minute highlight film out and it was getting shared by the couple and all kinds. And I was just like, that was the point where I was like, oh, okay, maybe, this is the first video content they're seeing from this wedding day. And it was a full 3-minute, I don't know, it was edited to like 1,000 years or something like that. Yeah. So, but then like a few minutes on, I was kind of like, actually, you should only be offended by this if you're not a great videographer, because you can make...
you only feel threatened if you look at that and go, well, that's not too similar to what I'm making.
Yeah, because if it obviously like couples and regular people won't be able to tell as much, but you know that with your audio, your storytelling, your music that's actually licensed and timeless, and your knowledge of like framing and everything, you can make something much better. And it might not be shared like as much, but you can guarantee in 30 years time it'll be the thing they're watching and not that phone video.
Because you know that the content creator, because it's kind of it's born out of a trend or a need for that, they are going to be leaning in on that much more sort of trend-based style of editing and the rest of it, where I think for you to make something as a much more kind of rise above that and go, I'm going to make the best quality kind of legacy film. Yes, in terms of marketing, for you to miss out on that immediacy of video content dropping on socials being theirs and not yours, that's obviously going to change the way that videographers are going to have to market. But I think in terms of kind of how precious or how valuable what you create is, I think hopefully it's going to mean those people at the bottom, which are only ever kind of phoning in as videographers and want to just make these glorified highlight things on a camera, will die away, or it will push the other people to realise, no, there is real value in what I'm doing, and I need to charge more than a content creator because what I'm adding is so much more valuable.
It's valuable and gets more valuable with age as well. Whereas content creation is probably most valuable for that first month or two after the wedding, when everyone they're sharing stuff on Instagram.
And I feel like us talking about this at the moment, here we are in September 2024, that we are kind of stood at the edge looking out at the divide which is going to come, and over the course of the next year or 18 months, or particularly next wedding season, I think you are going to see maybe some of those videographers at the bottom either going to have to rise above or become content creators.
I think there'll be a pressure as well for videographers to start adding little bits of content creation to their package. This is early days in my thought process, but I would love to start offering just like little clips afterwards. Like here's just your like uncut confetti shot, or 5 to 10 seconds of your uncut confetti shot. Here's you walking down the aisle, and then just every wedding cut out those exact same bits and whack it. And
it will cause your videography to evolve, or the industry to evolve. Which I think then it kind of comes into that new thing again. And I guess kind of while we're touching on that as well, is I also know, or have seen over the course of this year, a lot of photographers that are wanting to add hybrid to their packages, or they're seeing the potential in doing that. They're either, say, bringing people in as content creators or using the ability that hybrid cameras now have for them to just take small clips of moving footage and almost content creating themselves whilst doing their job.
Yeah.
And so they're almost trying to, again, protect what they do, add a string to their bow or whatever. But I don't see many videographers going, oh, do you know what? I'm scared of this. I'm going to move and take photos instead.
Yeah.
So I think at the moment is people have realised as well that, for all the things that we've just said, is that the younger generations who are then the future going to become our brides, they're only going to know or realise the power of video content far more than probably the older people that are getting married at the moment are. Yeah. And so it's going to cause that wave to happen.
But you always move forward, don't you? Like,
yes.
I guess photography is like the legacy, the oldest like sort of thing out of them all, right? So you've got photographers who are adding some video to their package. Then you've got video people who are going forward rather than...
Yeah.
Because if from a video perspective, like it's a market where it's not... there's a lot of videographers now, but it's not as saturated as photography.
Of course.
So like if you go from video to photo, you're going to find it a lot harder then to start marketing yourself in a market that's already just jam-packed with photographers who have got the experience and the portfolio and everything. Yeah,
because I'll be honest, like and whether this makes me an old man or not, I don't know, but I feel that I've made such kind of changes in what's important to me in my wedding photography over the course of this year, is that I don't want to enter that at all. I can appreciate video. I love video, but I kind of feel that the storytelling of those little moments that I seek out take that much of my brain space and awareness on a wedding day that I would hamper the quality of what I'm paid there to do to try and add that in. Yeah. So if anything, I almost want to kind of go the other way and really become a photographer's photographer. People that really appreciate photography, they appreciate good storytelling, good moments, good composition. It's going to make me a better photographer because I'm going to have to be a better photographer if that's all I offer in order to get the clients that I want.
I think it's just money at the end of the day, isn't it? Maybe. I don't know. Someone who does hybrid, let us know why, because it seems like just an add-on that you can add on for money. Like, it doesn't seem any other reason to do it.
And I wonder if it's, again, a market point. If you're at that kind of tipping point where you are getting good money to shoot photo, but a lot of your weddings aren't having a videographer, so you're seeing a gap in the market where they would maybe give you a few £100 to add a highlight video, but they wouldn't fork out, say, another 2,000 or 3,000 for a videographer. That's one thing. But then how would you sit then if they do fork out for a videographer and still want your highlight video, because then they see you as photographer, content creator all in one. That becomes different, and that's a whole episode in itself. But I think at the moment, like we were saying, I think we really are at that kind of tipping point where change is coming, but also the tech and what's come behind us has reached a point where it is a really good time to become a videographer.
I was just going to say that the transition between photo to video to photo may be a bit harder, just because if you're a photographer, there's probably weddings where you don't work with a videographer often, right? And then you can like quickly grab some clips and whatever. You could experiment, and you're not really stepping on anyone's toes. But if you're a videographer, you work with a photographer every wedding. So if you start taking some photos, the majority of people, probably quite rightly so, will be a little bit annoyed that you're there taking photos when that's their job to do. So I do think it's maybe harder to make that transition from video to photo as well, potentially.
But don't you think the kit's allowed as well, though? Like we were saying about the guy with the camcorder. Now you're shooting pretty much on the same brand and style of cameras that I am.
I was going to say.
So the fact that I can literally just hit record on my camera with the same glass and stuff makes video a lot more achievable, where I'm not having to carry a whole new set of kit for it.
And did we discuss on the R5 Mark II, the Canon, you can now take a photo in the middle of taking a video?
No, because I only found this out recently. I heard it on another podcast, talking about it. But yes, but also you can do it on my Leica as well. Because I shot a wedding the other day and then I heard this, so I literally had to go on it because I took that to my wedding. And you can literally hit record and then you use the camera as it is, and the light's still flashing in the corner, so it's still recording the video.
Raw?
Yeah.
It takes a raw photo.
I can take raw files whilst my camera is still recording in.
So I think that might be a future thing that's going to happen, and like that will help us a lot for like screenshots and things like that, as long as you're not using an ND filter. Because if you're using an ND filter, it would just be blurry and all that kind of stuff. But I've found not using an ND filter really helpful because I can just take screenshots and they're all perfectly sharp and look great. But
there's a whole episode of thinking, should you be a crank or should you be an ND?
But I had a photographer walk up to me the other day and be like, "Are you taking photos?" And I was like, no. I was like, no, I'm not taking photos. And she was like, well, you're holding the camera up to your eye and like pressing the button. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm literally just doing video. That's how I shoot, because it's a third point of contact to keep it steady.
Especially on a bright day, I imagine. I struggle to see my screen, so I love using the viewfinder.
Like a sunset. And she was like, no, honestly, like, I don't care if you do. Like, you can take photos and use them for whatever you want if you want from this. And I was like, Okay, I've not heard that from Bill.
You're genuinely called out on it.
Yeah. So yeah, like we're using obviously the same gear. But yeah, coming down to gear is something that we've also said about video, is the barrier of entry now for video, because it's always been relatively simple to get into photo in terms of you just need to buy a camera that takes raw photos and good lenses and glass.
But again, you could at a base level, you could start with a fairly basic camera and a kit lens and at a very cheap end.
A crop sensor and the 50mm 1.8, job done.
But you still think with video, even if you were buying that kind of cheaper kind of like knockoff stuff where you're going, I still need that, I still need mics, I probably still need lights, I still need a tripod, I still need some form of stabilization, I need at least one camera. Like that barrier of entry is a lot higher, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And that's sort of advanced massively since COVID, when in 2020 obviously the A7S III come out, we got 10-bit, we got 4K
a long time for that
slow-mo. Yeah. And as much as we try and fool ourselves, that like the 1080 and the A7 III was soft, and you could make it look great. You could make great films of it, great storytelling.
I'm sure there's still some people out there now that are still using those A7
I'm definitely offending them right now, so I'm sorry. I know someone that does. So use the 1080 on the A7S or the A7 III or the A7S II. And look, it's perfectly usable, and your couples probably most of the time aren't going to notice.
If you're getting booked and your couples love it, then there's your answer, isn't it? Yeah.
But I've always said that the majority of the time I upgrade, it's more for me than it is for the couples. So I can see when something's in 4K. I can color grade to make something much closer to what I want if I've got the 10-bit and the log and everything like that. So when the A7S III came out, obviously it was just a no-brainer to get. And now you've got things like the Panasonic S5 II, which is, like, I'm sure I've seen it for like 1,200 quid with a lens on like Prime days and things like that. That's an insane camera. Like that's arguably one of the best small video cameras available right now. 1,200 quid a lens or 1,500 quid a lens.
Which again, even if you were someone who's not a professional, who just has a reasonable income and enjoys taking photos and videos, that's quite an accessible thing, isn't it, for you to buy?
X100 prices.
Cheaper, really. If you're looking at the new one, they're like £1,500-1,600, aren't they?
Yeah. So the barrier of entry for video now, and they've obviously all got stabilization in. So if you can deal with, in the first few years, I think you probably should, to be fair, without a gimbal, then you can just buy the camera and not have to worry about getting stabilization for it.
Like the advent of like tracking, like face tracking and eye tracking and stuff. Like before, having to see people with like the rubber bands and like trying to pull manual focus to keep up with walking shots, or even just doing that way. Now, you can just literally like tap on the screen on someone's face and go, just stay there, hit record.
I used to be on the gimbal on the A7 III, literally one hand on the gimbal and one hand like machine gun in with the screen, like, because you had to keep tapping. But now you can tap once and then you can just do your shot. And it's like, it is so easy now. And like, I know, there are people that, I prefer to manual focus because I prefer more control over, and fair play to you guys, but like my job, or my thought process has always been, I'm going to make my job as easy as I possibly can and do as less work as I possibly can,
give
with
yourself
gear,
the best chance to succeed,
so that I can actually just focus on moments and people and things like
and
that.
I'm sure I have that conversation with people as well in the way that I shoot at weddings, where kind of leaning into, particularly in sort of drinks receptions and stuff, where you are using pretty much aperture priority auto ISO. So again, all I have to do is literally look for the moments. And I felt like my hit rate, or success rate of images has gone up, but I can only do that now because my cameras are capable of handling those ISOs that they might need to creep into if you are in the shadows of the day or doing those things. But before, it wasn't possible. But also, because I am a photographer, same with you, you're trained that that if stuff goes wrong, you can flip the settings back in and you know how to correct that stuff if it stops working.
Definitely. Low light is definitely another thing. Because I used to use like the GH3 or whatever back in the day, like little micro four third sensor, because it was like relatively affordable, and the low light was disgusting. It was grim. It was not nice, but it's just got better and better. And now being able, like, couples or like sometimes photographers are like, it's dark in here, and I'm like, I'm shooting at 12,800 and
that's it, that dual ISO on the A7S III. I think that's really changed the game for videographers. Like, I remember other photographers going, I've got to throw a light up because my ISO can't do this, and I was there going, well, still you can probably get away with it. And now, like I say, that dual ISO has really changed the game, I think, for video. And I think all of that, like, to be said as well, just with kind of gear as a whole, it has made it an easier kind of way to get in, hasn't it? It's
there's always a sort of barrier of entry, and I think now more than ever it's easy to go out and buy your first camera and lens and shoot a wedding with it and create something which is, like, quality wise in terms of like the actual looks of it, isn't that far off of what other people are making.
And also as well, I think this is probably a bigger industry thing as well, though, is that, like, I remember when I first started, being a wedding photographer wasn't cool. Do you know what I mean? Like other photographers look down on wedding photographers and we're like...
Yeah, that happens in video.
And I feel that being in weddings over the last 5 to 6 years has become like there are more like rock star like wedding photographers now, or it's almost cool to be a photographer. And I think now we're pretty much with social media, and you see kind of like really cool stuff, or this kind of like, you know, like style shoots introducing weddings and like that. You kind of see these kind of like crazy stuff that you can get now, that it's almost being like, well, that's a really cool thing to do, like, you know, to try and climb the ladder as an intern or run on a production house is like to be an assistant on a production thing. Now to go to a wedding with like a gimbal and stuff and run around, you can still, and if that's your inspiration source and you want to try and replicate some of that, I think it's a lot cooler, isn't it, to try and to get into that now.
There might have been a change in how people look at it, but I know that when you know, if you speak to someone who's in TV and film and you say I'm a wedding videographer, like before they're like spit on the floor, hot tour, you know what I mean?
But then the same with photography, it was like those that can't do shoot weddings, you know, that was it.
Exactly. But now, like I've noticed a lot of people recently who have been like, oh, I don't envy you. That looks like a really hard job, sort of thing. Yeah. And I'm like, it's really not, like, because people from the outside look at the whole, oh, it's a bride, is going to be like, it's really not as bad.
Or have you missed that shot? And I think there's an element of that, anything though, isn't there? But then, you know, equally with kind of socials, and I put this in my notes as well, as maybe I see it, is that for someone who isn't a videographer, and maybe like stuff with Coda coming on as well now, there are these kind of people in our industry that we've had in photography for a while that have kind of emerged with really big followings on socials, who have almost become kind of the celebrities or the kind of rock stars of wedding videography, that people have got those, they're making or encouraging change in your industry faster than kind of everyone kind of sidling up in a thing. They're really going, this is my style, or offering something really kind of different and whatever. And I think that's kind of made more people want to creep in or transition across because they see their content. And because video is so cool, isn't it? I think it's you look at a video of, like, particularly I find as a photographer, like you see like a drone shot flying over a cool thing or like a twist, and I'm like, oh, that's amazing. It maybe seems more kind of just cooler.
I think there are more that, like, I think probably what you're getting at there is that there are more. If you start up and you're trying to look for inspiration, there are people at the very top of their game that you can find inspiration from.
And some of them have got there pretty freaking quickly as well. Not saying that their work's not amazing to kind of back it up.
The wedding videography starter pack, get an S5 II, follow Russell Kendicole's Instagram, you're done. That's it.
But again, we talk about Russell. I don't know him personally. I've listened to a lot of his podcast. I'm sure you're really looking forward to his talk at Coda.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think he's someone that really kind of has emerged and has become a real pillar of not only UK wedding videography, but people kind of globally look to as a kind of real like marker in your industry. And has probably only been in business, 5 years?
Yeah.
So I think that's
not been long.
And there are stories like his. And again, don't get me wrong, I'm not hating on him at all. I think his work's incredible. I think the business that he's built for himself and the way that he conducts himself,
the brand is real.
Very much so. And I'm definitely a follower of the hype for sure. But that is, people look at that, don't they, and go, well, if he can do it in 5 years, it makes me want to have a good go.
Yeah.
Where before 100%. It was like, you know, you're the guy still slogging away at the local church for a decade, even to earn a crust, let alone now be flown around the world to shoot bridal campaigns. And
you see what can be done. Whereas even when I started, it was like,
would you have thought that was possible?
No. You follow people, but like you say, that they're still doing the local churches and that. Even the best ones were doing that. Whereas now, like, the people that you follow, the best ones they're abroad all the time or whatever. Yeah, maybe that's not what they want to do, but like that's just like they're at the top of their game and they've shown you how to get there, sort of thing. But yeah, that's quite an interesting topic. That community as well. Like obviously,
I think we've kind of full circle now. We'll get to the end there, back to the end. I think that is probably the biggest thing as well. Definitely
is that videography is an isolating thing. I think in 2017, 2018, like you rocked up, you chatted to photographers who weren't that keen on you being there.
He's glared at you anyway. Fall in, kid.
And there wasn't much in terms of like, everything I learned was from American videographers because it started there a lot quicker. All of
Fire and Ice and stuff. That was they're a big.
Oh, it was Craig Adams from Wedding Film School. Like people who were in that era, and he did loads of behind the scenes stuff. And I watched all of his stuff, and that was how I was learning and how I was getting my stuff. Whereas now you've got the Facebook group for videographers, multiple American Facebook groups, but there's a UK one as well, which is really handy. obviously like the communities that we all come to, like the individual communities, the coactive and things that you run and other people run. But those even kind of social things. If you
look at like UK people, like I kind of think, and you listen to things sort of like the amount of people that when Philip White launched that course like a number of years ago, the amount of people that cite that as their kind of reference point of getting in. Then more recently, obviously, the Adam Wings course is all of those things that there's now. It's not just kind of these kind of like cool people from America that you can kind of dream of. There are people over here that are probably shooting at similar venues to us, working at similar places, or have built solid businesses for themselves that want to help others. It's not that closed shop of you have to learn by yourself and do it all in secret. There is, like I say, people want to form communities and share knowledge.
Yeah, and I think that confuses some people sometimes, because you kind of like, you go in the videographers group and there is advice, like everything you would need advice for. If you search it, you would find it in that group already. And like, it's just nice that it's, like, I mean, we're pretty much an open book on this.
Yeah, definitely,
I mean, we've been so open with all of our techniques and things like that for the most part. And I just think like that is all part of it. Is having podcasts to listen to, having groups to join, becoming a part of, and not gatekeeping the industry. I think that's a massive thing. It's not being like, well, what would I tell you how I shoot a ceremony, because you're just going to copy me and you're my competition and whatever. And like, it's probably a unique thing in this industry, but it's rare that I've seen someone as competition. And not just a mate in the industry.
I think so. But I do think that is something which, as I say, has only flourished over the last 5 years. It was getting there, say stuff like Photography Farm, kind of the 9 Dots guys that are helping obviously Rupert on Coda, like they've had these kind of online communities that have spilled out into in-people conferences and stuff. But I do really think, I know we probably talk about it far more than we need to, considering it's almost 5 years ago, is that kind of sense of community really paid a lot of people help during the pandemic, when people were catching COVID and couldn't go to weddings. If you had nobody around you, you found it really hard to kind of stay built. But then the people that were in these communities and had helped others got those favours returned to them when they needed it most. And so I think, again, community is, I'm really grateful. I think it's probably one of those things which has kept me in this industry, or kept me loving this industry. It was one of the things before that when you felt you were very isolated from someone who is a very social person, I found it even more in the off season where I wasn't going to weddings and meeting new people. I did feel sometimes incredibly alone.
It was like
now I don't feel like that.
Because there's always something to do and some event to go to, or or
even just to message like 2 or 3 like photographer or videographer pals and go, do you want to go and meet for a coffee or do this? And they would go, oh yeah, we'll do that, rather than, I'm not telling you myself, I don't hang out with you, like you're not at work anymore. And that's it has really made it really nice. And so I guess I need to ask you the burning question, don't I, is do you think that right now is the best time to be a wedding videographer?
So I think it's, to break it down, I don't think there's a real answer to that, whether it's a yes or no. I think it's the easiest time to start a wedding videography business. At the moment, you could just create an Instagram, not even necessarily start a website straight away, create an Instagram, get, one of like the cheaper cameras, and just get out there to a wedding fair and pretty much be getting bookings because of how popular it is at all the price points right now. So I think it's the easiest time to get into videography. I think it's a lot easier than it was before because of the community, because of the help, because of how accessible everything is. I think it's going to be harder to get bookings at the low end. So I think if in the next couple of years someone's getting into videography, I don't think there's any point at starting less than $1,000. I think the best way in is going to be to second shoot for people who are doing well, and then use that content, if you can, to propel yourself beyond the £1,000.
Do you think that's because you will fall foul to content creators? Yes. That their market will almost become swallowed by content creation?
100%. Yeah, I do think so. If you're starting if you're starting your business and you're being like, oh, I'm just going to charge 750, 800 quid for a first view. I think before that was a massive thing, but I think now someone would be like, oh, I could just get content creation, like a decent, like someone who's got a massive following or whatever to come and do my wedding, like content create my wedding for a bit. It's more rewarding than it used to be because people care more. And I think in that sense, it's become a better job. Because it's nice to be wanted. And I mean,
but even I remember you saying to me over kind of when we first started becoming friends, and I would get probably a handful of cards or even a couple of gifts from clients a year. And you've been then, I never get that. Like I might get a thank you when I send them the film, but I never get that. Where this year you've started to, I think again, you've become, and especially that's your business has grown, you've kind of grown in confidence or whatever. But I think again, people put that much more kind of effort or that desire to see their film is there more, rather than we've got the video now. It's like we're really excited for this, and they're much more wowed when they get that product back, and I credit that to you, which is why you get that kind of level of gratitude on the other end.
A good metaphor for that is the first wedding we did together. Which was at a golf course. The couple didn't even know I was coming, because the couple didn't.
Yeah, I think the mum booked you, didn't she? Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
and the couple couldn't have cared less that I was there. Let's be honest. And now, like, we work together, and it's a whole different story. Like, our couple genuinely really care about us. Yeah, and as a team as well. When me and you.
Yeah, like we did a wedding, didn't we, in Easter this year? Yeah, and I think definitely in the review that she left me, we were spoke as one of the same. It was like, even though obviously we do this together, but we don't run our businesses as one. It was like Tom and then Chris, the videographer, and she spoke really positively about both of us, and hopefully she said nice things about me in your review as well. I hope no, otherwise maybe she just preferred you. I don't know, but like you say, it's that it was really kind of seen that that we were seen as equals, which I think we should be. Yeah.
So it's more rewarding. I hate to be needy, but you want people to care about what you do, and especially in the creative industry, you want the output to be like appreciated, and you want to get those messages back, like, oh my god, I'm in tears, and like,
especially when you've worked really frigging hard on it as well. You don't want to. Oh, this is great, do you? Like you want the oh my god, I'm bawling. Like I love this. Like thank you so. Yeah, you do. I think anyone who said they don't want that as well is a freaking liar. Like I really do. Like who doesn't want people to say nice things about them? Yeah. Like I find it incredibly awkward and still don't know how to handle compliments very well. But I would still be far more distraught if I didn't hear anything or got insulted.
Yeah. And you definitely hear back a lot more now, like with people that are like fully invested. And I would say it's less isolating as well. Obviously, I don't think if videography was the same as it was 6 years ago that I would still be doing it now, because I find it relatively isolating as it is doing at home, doing all the editing and that kind of thing. And it's nice to have events like Coda, people in the community who are your videographers around you, but also your friends. Like just tomorrow I'm going to a co-working space with a couple of videographers just to hang out and edit and things like that, and having that just sense of community is definitely makes it a better place to be. And so probably the answer is an overall yes. It's definitely a better time to get into videography than it's ever been, really. But equally, if you are going to do it, it's probably more of a graft now than it would have been. I think you have to work harder now than I had to work when I started. Yeah,
the door's not as kind of wide open for you to sneak in as it was probably, say, 5 to 10 years ago. But I think that the kind of the push or the elevation or the heights that you could achieve, and the adoration, the money and the rest of it. I think there's the kind of the scope to achieve in videography has never been bigger than it is now.
And I'm not under the illusion, like we're lucky to be doing this. Like it is a cool, like we have time freedom, yes, weekends in the summer and whatever, but like, financial freedom, time freedom, we can choose the bookings we take, it's a good position to be in. So it's a good industry to join in. I think that's a good circle.
It was one of those kind of nice little topics that kind of came to me, and I was like, well, do I even have a kind of a reason to be thinking this? Because I only see it very much as an outsider, obviously the conversations that we have. But hopefully you guys have listened to that, or maybe you don't agree with us, or you have kind of opinions as well, or this whole episode hasn't been a kind of lesson in making you feel grateful for the job that you do, but hopefully you do, maybe you do anyway. But this one particularly, I'd love to know other people's thoughts and really get a conversation going on it to kind of think, do you guys think that it's the best time to be a videographer?
If you've been in the industry a while, let us know. Do you think it's better?
Maybe you've seen more change than we have.
Yeah. Or equally, if you're just starting up, are you struggling, or do you think it's like the best time of your life? Like, let us know what you think. Or
maybe you're not having, maybe you are finding it hard and you don't know why. But there's an answer to that, isn't there, Chris? There's a segue coming along.
There's a segue coming along, isn't there? Completely missed the ball on that.
So there are still a couple of spots left to our branding and marketing workshop, which is happening in November at the Cozy Club in Guildford. So if you are kind of struggling with your branding and marketing, you feel that there's a change on the horizon, you maybe want to get yourself out of that same pool of thought that people are going to lump you with the content creators, and you want to elevate what you're doing, and maybe your website needs a spring clean going into booking season in the next year, then I think that this workshop would be really good for you.
Yes, even you said earlier that you spoke to someone who didn't really know that they could target a specific person, and because of that they probably weren't charging as much as they could have been given their experience.
Yes, definitely.
And I think branding and marketing is the whole, obviously, like umbrella of it. But if you think about by changing specific things within your business, the language you use, your colours, the types of photos and videos that you're showing, you could instantly raise your price or start getting more inquiries.
Or be more fulfilled.
Just from
you're
that.
shooting weddings that you genuinely enjoy more, rather than having a kind of catch-all approach to any inquiry that comes in.
100%. And after we did the brand and marketing workshop last time, I redesigned my whole website, and I feel better than ever now about my brand.
And it's been really nice. Obviously, we ran the first version of this in May, and the changes that have been made by the people that came along, we've had some really good feedback. Some of them have started to offer new things and change the way that they approach their branding.
Yes.
And I know that they've had some successes in doing so. So what we said did work. Yeah. It's not just us kind of sell you on something.
So the website review part of it was that, wasn't it? Where we literally go through your website and we don't tear it apart, but it's about making sure, if you give us the sort of people that you want to target, we'll make sure that you're on the right track to do that. So.
And I think where that comes in the second half of the day as well, after lunch, which is provided, by the way, which food's always an essential.
Food, and it was good as well.
Yeah, we're back at Cozy Club again.
Food,
I think a lot of the stuff in the end, that once we pulled people's websites up on the big screen, is that they could already see where they needed to make changes from the slides and the lessons that we delivered in the first half of the day. Yeah. So I think then it became less of us feeling that we were tearing people apart. It was just kind of pointing out these things that they probably started to realise. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So again, the link for that will be in the description below where you're listening or watching.
19th of November.
It's the 19th of November at Cozy Club in Guildford. It's an all-day thing, and tickets say there are still a few spots left. That's a good place to leave it, isn't it?
Sweet. Perfect, yeah.
So that was a nice episode.
I've enjoyed this.
Good. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks for listening.
See you next one.